right, what is going on? This is SCPCRNP, aka Lack of Lepers. Thank you so much for joining us again. It has been a little bit since we saw each other. I was on vacation last week to the beach. That was a lot of fun with the family. Something needs to be said real quick, just right off the bat, just some house cleaning stuff. So I am undergoing a little bit of a schedule change. I'm going back to my full-time job next week, which is a nurse practitioner. So the name SCPCRNP actually checks out. But so I'll be going back to that full-time. You may know that I have been doing this, just a wonderful time doing this nightly because I've been on paternity leave, just had my second kid, who's a darling. So unfortunately that is over. Had a nice long time. So the schedule's going to change just a little bit. I think I can still get away with doing this regularly. I don't think we'll do it every weeknight. You know, we kind of did it for every weeknight, and then we took Wednesday away. And I think starting next week, since I'll go back full time, we'll take one more day away. So from now on, these reaction streams will only be on Tuesday and Thursday night. So I think that's a pretty fair compromise, just because I'm going to have a lot more on my plate. And we'll have less time to do this kind of stuff. But I have really enjoyed it. Obviously, I would be doing this full time if I could, but you know, I got mouths to feed, so I got to make room for my actual job. But we can find a nice happy medium, so we'll do that. Having said that, let's get into what we're going to be listening to together tonight. Let me pull this up on the screen. Here we go. So this is a podcast called So You Think You Can Fanon. And I can't say that I understand what that name is a reference to. Fandoms, I guess. I don't really know. I don't know anything about this podcast. This is the first time that I've come across it. And the way I came across it, just a quick little story. I think this was posted on someone's Twitter. I think it was Sean Saxum who posted this on his Twitter, because there's an interview with Sean Saxum. And I'm always interested in listening to people who do interviewing get interviewed. You know, that's always a nice thing to see. So I listened to that, and I gotta say, I was not pleased with that episode. It was not very good. I'll say that. It was just a lot of banter, and I didn't think it would work well here. But I did go down the list, and I'm glad I did, because they've done a lot of SCP-style podcasts in their past. And so this one kind of caught my eye. This one we're going to listen to is an interview with the one, the only S D Locke. So this is an interview they did in January, so this is a few months old by now. And we may come back to this. One of the things that doing this less times a week will afford me is a little more time just to listen to these things on my own. Maybe we'll get a better concentration of good material to go through, given that I can kind of screen it just a little bit before it shows up here. So with that introduction out of the way, let's get to the actual podcast. We'll go ahead and kick it. I don't know how many episodes this is going to take. We'll finish it whenever we can. But I want to thank you for joining. Appreciate you being here. Let's go.
Good evening, D-Class. Welcome to another SCP discussion. Today we have gathered here with a group of researchers, ranging from your usual cast as well as our...
Sounds so solemn. It sounds like he's making he's officiating a wedding of some kind.
Our special D-Class guest, Phoenix. Hi. As we discuss the wonderful work and talk to Dr. Locke and their entries into the SCP universe. Locke, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm S D Locke, author on the SCP Wiki, most likely known for the deadly laser sun that melts people into shitty...
It's a good one.
Probably. Yeah, any interests and hobbies that you might want to talk about? Maybe a little bit about your writing background, just so everyone kind of has a better picture of like how long you might have been doing this sort of thing.
Oh, goodness. I don't really have a background in writing outside of this. SCP is just kind of like a little little side hobby that I started. I haven't really written anything beyond this, although.
That's awesome. By the way, I'll say once I've said this a lot. You're probably tired of it by now, but the idea that you came from somewhere else writing, that you have to sort of, do you have any other credentials outside of SCP? That's not really what they're asking. They're just asking what he does for fun. What she does for fun. I think Locke's pronouns are she. I'm not sure. Sorry about that. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome when authors are like, nope, I just wrote in the SCP, and that's it. Like, that's enough for me, that's all I need. And, people like Locke, I mean, Locke could certainly do well in another writing medium, doing other things. Locke is incredibly talented. Certainly one of the authors from the wiki that I respect. Probably one of the most respect that I give typically to authors from the SCP. Locke is up there. I've always appreciated Locke. Always thought they were well above average writer. Most of their works are outstanding, and even their bad ones are well above average. So, just been a big fan of Locke for a long time. We've had some philosophical disagreements, and I've been a little forward about those at times in the past, but that's just who I am. So, regardless of what is returned to me on the other side of that glass viewing, I certainly respect Locke quite a lot. Locke would have to do a lot to lose my respect. So, all that to say, I love it when someone has such talent and they're basically just like, no, like, I'm just writing on the wiki, and that's good enough for me.
Just need more questions. So, okay, how am I gonna go about saying?
Some machine gun fire stutter right there. Yikes.
Okay, this. First off, I just want to say it's like this is my fangirl moment. So give me a minute here. It's really cool that you've decided to be on our show, because I would spend I remember like being like a sophomore in like band and reading your getting into SCPs. I went to 001 and I'm like, ooh, what's this? When day breaks, and just being like amazed at the story. Like, you get what I mean. It's like, it's really cool to meet you, man.
This guy really is a little starstruck. I could barely get the sentence out. Yeah, I guess this person just called Locke man. I really don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know the pronouns here. Let me change the light color. Wish I knew. We'll say man in the generic sense as well. But yeah, there's another myth. Speaking of myths, one myth is that you have to write somewhere else besides the SCP to sort of get your street cred as an author. I don't think that's true. And the other thing is, that, well, they say you shouldn't meet your heroes. There's this myth that, if what you like on the page, is good, if what you read on the page is really good and you like it, then you must therefore benefit probably from meeting the people behind the articles. But that's just not true. I mean, because, writing is its own form of photoshopping. I mean, you're really taking the best portions of yourself, the best portions of what you have to think and say, and you're putting them on the page. So it's really sort of like the airbrush version of the author and their thoughts and what they might say. I think it's rare that you meet somebody who's equivalently interesting off the page as they are on the page, but people meeting their heroes and getting all sort of like this interviewer is with Locke, like starstruck and boo, 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 drooling out the words of their mouth. I mean, that sort of stuff is why you get the sort of pseudo celebrity culture that enables some really terrible things to have happened on the wiki and in the community. So, I would just urge people. I mean, we all admire, I admire Locke more than most, I think. Locke has, once again, my admiration on a level that is unusual. Not many people get this kind of respect from me, and I'm not gonna fanboy or girl over anybody. I'm sorry. It's just there's no reason for that. They're people, and like I said, oftentimes what you see on the page is the best part.
Years ago, and like I've been reading since like the very early days, but like before they broke into like the thousands and stuff. So I had the same experience when I first joined, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I read all your shit. Like, you're so cool. Like, what's up? Like, with these people, I just like, okay, thank you. Hi.
Exactly. Yeah. So the good ones go like, oh, okay, yeah, thanks. The bad ones go like, hey, you got any nudes? It's not good.
So yeah, it's something like a lot of people, because you know you get to like interact with all these creators directly in this community, and it's really easy.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's a very kind of tight-knit community, at least from like the other authors that I've kind of looked at and kind of peered into, just to see kind of how things went, because I was curious about.
I mean, is it a tight-knit community? Like, I think it is in some ways. You know, we all kind of know each other. You know, I mean, it's very rare that you start writing on something like the wiki and people don't take notice of who you are, you know? I mean, is it a tight-knit community? I think that's a different question, you know, depending on where you're looking at the situation. I think from the outside, it obviously looks like we're all very tight-knit. I say we like I'm a part of it. I'm not. It seems like it's very tight-knit because everybody's sort of doing their own thing and writing in the same way, and they just sort of like keep putting these articles out and whatever. But if you're inside the community, you know, there's just an alarming amount of discord. There's just an alarming amount of turmoil, I think, social turmoil that goes on in the SCP Wiki. And I think that every community is going to have that. But I certainly think that the SCP community is particular in that they have a lot of derision, even between themselves. There's a lot of infighting that goes on in the SCP Wiki and the culture around it. So, you know, is it a tight-knit group? I think it's a tight-knit group insofar as everybody's there for, you know, to submit articles to the site. But even then, you can't even say that without a footnote, without a caveat attached, because, you know, a lot of people, you know, they are probably writing for less than noble reasons.
About just like the whole SCP process, but like it seems like everyone's kind of come together to create this whole world and universe that is just filled with these weird little doodads and fuck knows what else.
I mean, it's all kumbaya come together if you ignore the fact that, you know, a lot of these people are here for the social spoils. They're not doing it just because they want to, you know, pay homage to the wiki. They do it because they want to get upvotes and get attention. And I have no proof of this. This is just me reading intent, which is not always fair or accurate. But it's my personal opinion that a lot of people get onto the SCP Wiki writing-wise so that they can funnel attention to things like their Twitter. That's just kind of what I've observed.
Just like the whole SCP process. But like it seems like everyone's kind of come together to create this whole world and universe that is just filled with these weird little doodads and fuck knows what else, just to kind of, I guess, create like a more interesting horrific fiction.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Really is a lot more interesting than what else is out there, I'll tell you that.
It's cool, and that's kind of the reason I really like this whole SCP community is like, it's such a like wonderfully creative place where like you find all sorts of like really like out there concepts that you really wouldn't see, and it's just
so when I first came onto the wiki, my mind was blown. I thought to myself, here's a group of people who are doing something. This is it, you know, because for a long time I've been like wondering, just as someone who studied art, very mindful of trends in art, like modernism, with a lot of different areas of art. Like, what's going to be the next literary step forward? What's the next evolutionary leap? And when I came across the SCP Wiki, that's immediately what I thought. I thought, wow, I found it. I found the people who were doing it. I found the group who's doing it. And that sort of importance and that sort of faith, that sort of reverence for the community, of course, as I just described, was ill-placed and was very, very quickly sort of, dampened, I guess I'll say, after interacting with the place. Of course, you shouldn't really hold things up to that kind of standard. That's really unfair, but I still think that that's true. I think that a lot of what I have to say in the space is try to get people back up to a point of being that respectable and understanding what store of value they have that they're operating in. Once again, where most people, I think, see it just as a means to, massage their own ego or pad their Twitter numbers, their Twitter follower count. I think largely the people at the SCP don't understand the value of what they have going in the project that they have. So I totally agree with this. I mean, there were certain things that I thought were just astoundingly advanced. The ideas that we take for granted now, like cognito hazards, info hazards, the whole thing, the format, the pseudoscientific clinical tone, sort of making a demanding sort of requirement out of the writing, all that we take for granted, but is just remarkably advanced, in my opinion. It's remarkably poignant culturally. That really is a confluence of a lot of very important and interesting, artistic threads. So I still think that about the Foundation. I still think that about the SCP Wiki. These days I tend to think of it more generally as containment fiction.
Always growing, and there's just so much originality, like still spilling in, 10 years later.
Yep.
It's a really special project, and my admiration for it's kind of why I stuck around for as long as I did, continuing.
Yeah. I should ask, when did you take an interest in writing? Like, when did this all sort of happen?
It was probably because I never actually enjoyed writing in school or anything like that, or just even personally in my off time.
Oh, okay.
But coming into this community and reading all these things, and learning that there's people behind it, and I think I was reading through Dr. Clef's work on the GOC hub and all his stories, outlining the magic of the universe and stuff like that. I want to give this a shot myself, and some of the first things I created was a GOC article, and yeah, it's kind of what really dragged me in, was just being inspired by others writing here.
Man, if you start with a GOC article, you got a leg up on that pile. I tell you what, most people's first articles are like talking animals, stuff.
And lots because I play way too many video games. Lots of old school retro horror games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, from when I was a kid. Scared the shit out of me when I was a little kid. I remember the first Resident Evil, I must have been 8 years old, when you first see that zombie that's eating some dude, and it turns into a cutscene where he turns around and looks at you. I dropped the controller. I was like, fuck this, out. And it sort of started my fascination with just horror and scares and thrills and things. So that plays into some of my
this is just a slight offshoot from that one.
So I don't know if you've noticed already, if you're listening to this closely with me, but something about the podcast audio was a little off. I've tried this on numerous different platforms, Spotify, and now this iHeart.com. And it looks as though maybe it was just something going on with the microphones. Maybe it was something to do with the processing of it ex post facto in the post-production. But there's little snippets, a half a second long, they just get cut out. And so it sounds like the thought is never finished. And it sounds like people just very abruptly changed topics. I think there are actual moments missing here. I think that's what's going on. So, just a production cue. Production note to the podcast. I say that like I'm any better. I mean, this last Friday night podcast we did, I had Harmony on as a guest, and it took 40 minutes in for anyone to let me know and for me to realize that that Harmony had a really bad echo on her voice. I mean, to the point where you couldn't even understand her. And I really hate that, because she did a lot of good work for us. That was a really great discussion that we had. It's really hard to listen to, but I would encourage you to just try to stick through it, because there's some really good moments in that talk. But my podcast, my work is some of the worst produced stuff ever, so I don't have any room to talk.
one. Was there a
But just to give you an FYI, that's what's going on.
specific
not just you.
SCP in the early days when you got into it that you thought, oh man, that's really cool? Or did you just kind of like all of the SCPs as they were coming
Like,
in?
it's so many of them, and like for so many different reasons. I think one that really stuck out to me when I first like started perusing through it was like 682. And that was mainly because of the test logs. Like, it provides a really good like sort of like wiki dive where like you find tons and tons and tons of other articles like through just that you're reading.
That's
So,
the
like,
lizard, right?
yeah, it's the lizard.
Yeah, the
I think,
hard to
yeah,
destroy
It's a good one.
reptile.
Oh gosh, plus 3,000.
So like that interconnectivity is kind of like
Fuck
what
me.
first got me like really reading
Yeah.
a bunch, because you see,
I mean, this is still a weird picture. You know, obviously they changed this picture. This used to be much different. Used to be much more direct. This is a lot. I think someone even did like an article about this. Like, I think it was part of the admonition hub where they kind of. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. Where they kind of take the image even and they sort of like mess with it just a bit. Let's see. I hate to go here because it might freeze my computer. I know there's a picture of it in here somewhere. I'm so sorry. God, I hate this. I hate this hub so much. I mean, literally going through these divs like gets me nauseous. Like, it's just such a bad memory for me. Just a bad memory. It just hurts. Just hurts to go through this. I got like PSTD from this. PTSD. Yeah, here it is. So here's the actual image. You know, they photoshopped it out. They did a great job. It's perfect. It's perfectly done. Check that out. Plus this. It's perfect. So, I mean, very, very well done. But I can't get through those articles. I can't even scroll through those articles without getting a little nauseous.
yeah, it's the lizard.
Yeah, the
I think,
hard to
yeah.
destroy reptile.
It is.
So like that interconnectivity is kind of like what first got me like really reading a bunch, because you see, they tried this on it and something wild happens. You're like, okay, now I have to learn what the hell this thing is and how it works, and now that makes sense. And now there's another one.
Is there any like favorite authors that you have, like in particular, through like just could be out like SCP or just books that you've read?
Right now I'd say probably one of my favorite friggin' authors, and also a pretty big into would be, and I might honestly be butchering. So,
See, that was a jump in the audio. We completely missed the author's name. Let's go back. It's
Written
not there.
at least something that I think everybody who's ever been interested in horror on the internet has gotten into. He's such an amazing author.
I highly
yes, I'm sure you gotta be familiar. Right now I'd say probably one of my favorite friggin' authors, and also a pretty
authors.
big into would be, and I might honestly be butchering. So,
Who?
Oh,
nice.
yes,
Who?
I'm sure you gotta be familiar with
What?
Lauren,
I missed it.
and,
And they're all like, yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, I have
that,
no
that
fucking
guy
clue what you're
has
talking about, man.
written at least something that I think
We'll figure
everybody
it
who's
out.
ever been
We'll
interested
figure
in
it out.
horror on the internet has gotten into. He's
Yeah.
such an amazing author.
Who?
I highly recommend his
it's
Frankenstein.
right in our
Who is
style.
this,
Just
man? Come on, who is this?
Frankenstein? I don't think I've read that one.
Shit, tell me who it
Yeah,
is.
he
I assume you've
wrote
read
his
that,
own
the one
version
with
of
the
Frankenstein.
Olsen
Guys. Guys, come on, man.
That sounds really cool.
Who is this guy?
I have to
Tell
answer
me who this
your
guy
question. Read The Enigma of Amigar Fall.
Yeah.
The
And
Enigma
that
of
one, because
Amigar
when you guys were reading
Fall.
through
Shit.
my proposal
Oh,
and
there he is.
3280, the one with the rain.
There he
You
is.
guys
We found
noticed
the
that
guy.
there is
We
a
found the
link.
guy. We had to hunt this motherfucker down. But Junti Io. Yeah, I think we all know this guy. We all know this guy. Yeah. So there's basically, if you haven't noticed, there's two authors. There's really three, but one is sort of a legacy pick that kind of is like, okay, yeah, whatever. But there's always two other authors that are mentioned by SCP writers. The legacy one is Lovecraft. I mean, it's kind of like the godfather, I guess, of that whole like attempt, that whole direction that the SCP Wiki really sort of takes and runs with. But the other two are this guy, this dude, Ito, who I've never read anything from. I've seen these images. I mean, these images are hard to miss if you're kind of in this area of the internet. They're hard to miss. But the other person is whoever wrote the House of Leaves book. Who wrote that? Somebody tell me. Yeah, there you go. Mark Z. Danielowski, excuse me. Yeah, so this is very often. In fact, this was just mentioned and recommended to me by one of the people I'm more closer with in the containment fiction space, Almerduck, on our last episode of SCP Meta. Took the time that Wikidot was down to read this book, and it has always been mentioned as a very influential book to basically everybody on the SCP Wiki. Obviously, that's an overgeneralization of a statement, but those two authors we hear a ton of, so for what it's worth.
The Enigma of Amigar Fault.
Yes.
And that one, because when you guys were reading through my proposal and 3280, the one with the rain, you guys noticed that there is a link to a third piece.
The dude's got a freaking fandom wiki. Ugh, sorry about that, man. That's why I never want to be like famous. I mean, I don't have to worry about that, I'm sure. But, you know, I'm terrified of being notable because I don't want like my works and my ideas to be revived like, 30 years from now to be used by some like sophomoric collegiate idiot who thinks that I was trying to say this one thing when I wasn't and uses my name and my face to buttress their dumb ideas. It happens all the time. I'm really terrified of that. Like, that's what I'm afraid of. And the other thing is like having stuff like this about you. Like, no one should be subjected to this kind of shit. I mean, it's bad.
So this sort of like second person prose dealie that I've been doing with those two, made of clay. That is, I'm like a third of the way through writing that one, and that is sort of loosely inspired by the Amigar Fault story.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you have any timeline as to when we will see the finished product?
I don't know, dude. I'm just like, my creative will like just comes and goes at the drop of a hat.
That's the way it should be, Sort of your body's way of telling you, to phase out. Oh, thank you. Thanks. You're the best. Thanks. I'd like to thank Coke, our sponsor, for this video. Yeah, I mean, so I'm the same way, like in phases, everything in phases, everything. I don't know if Locke may have mentioned this. I don't know if Locke does anything else like music or other things. Always in phases, always got to let it breathe, let it rest, come back, give it some time off, so important.
3 years ago with like, I set it up for like, have you ever seen like the old school from the first series, like exploration, like on all individual pages, like the stairwell has it like that, or like the 610, the flesh that hates, with the zombie monsters.
How y'all doing tonight?
I put out like one, a month later put out the first chapter, and then it took me 3 years to actually start writing the next one. So I finally just posted that last year. So it could be whenever, It could, I did add a giant chunk to it recently, so there's some movement happening with it at least.
Very good.
Good.
We will eagerly await it, but it is worth the wait, however long that is.
Yes, for sure.
You got to make sure you pick up those old thoughts, those old efforts. Things that are left forgotten, they rot. Ideas, they rot. So you gotta don't let it rot. I mean, even if you have to do something with it that's like not great, not as great as you want it to be, don't let it sit there. Collect dust, because once it gets buried under a sufficient layer of dust, it just rots, and it's just a bad idea after that.
Video games, but do you like? How do I put this? Do you like jazz and maybe anime?
I don't listen to a lot of jazz, but I do like anime.
Interesting.
Nice.
Any particular anime that you like?
Probably one of my favorites, because I'm apparently 12, is Bleach.
Oh no, Bleach was awesome.
which I'm super excited to hear that they are apparently bringing back to do the 1,000-year Blood War arc, finally animate that, which, yes. I don't know, I just kind of go in and out. Death Note is another one that
Such a
really
great
big
one.
fan of for a
Such
little
a great one.
while.
If you list all the like really popular animes, are you really into anime? I'm not. I have a very casual relationship with anime. I know Death Note. I know Dragon Ball Z. Okay. I know anything that came on Cartoon Network. What is it? Adult Swim. Toonami. Toonami was the other thing. Damn, that sends me back. Hold on a second. Toonami. Let's go here for just a second. Just for old time's sakes. Toonami. Damn, man, this takes me back. Anything on Toonami, Outlaw Star.
We're
Oops,
marooned on
rest
this
in peace.
planet.
Rest in peace, headphone users. Sorry about that. Let's see. Let's check this out for a second.
And that's curation.
Sorry, I had to sneeze. Let's not watch that now. Okay. I love jazz, though, musician. Jazz drummers are like the best drummers. Like every genre has talented drumming, but jazz drummers, watch out, man. They are, oh my God, they're so fucked up, like in the best way. Jazz drummers are like, they're the kind of drummer that if you're a drummer, you don't want to meet in a back alley drumming. Watch out.
Oh shit, maybe I'm not that big of an anime fan, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I fall into that too.
Yeah,
It's.
Go on.
Well, I was just gonna say that there are some anime shows that are very, very anime-esque, like Bleach and like Death Note. If you like them, I'd still say you're an anime fan. It's just I don't think you have to be a seasonal anime fan to count yourself as part of the anime conglomerate. Especially since Bleach is one of the big three for me.
Good to know my weeb status is still
Gundam Wing, Hiro Yui, you know, that good stuff. That was me. I basically was just like a filter feeder of anime, whatever came on, like I said, like Cartoon Network or whatever. I never like did any like digging to get to a different anime. I can't list a single anime that isn't just like incredibly well known.
Dragon Ball.
Oh
Yes.
Yeah.
hell yeah, baby.
that's
Yeah.
super weeb.
It's super weeb. I'm sorry,
Weeb,
but that's one of the
Almost-
introductories.
That's
God
almost the
damn it.
definitive weeb anime.
I guess I'm a weeb.
I was born into this.
You're molded by
by
it.
it.
Sergio, you had a
I
question.
haven't seen Western Show.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I guess we should go. How did you,
So I'll say this. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I first listened to this podcast because there was a Sean Saxum interview. That Sean Saxum interview, I'm very glad that it's totally different from this one. It's just a 180 tone-wise. I mean, the Sean Saxum one has a bunch of dudes just like cutting up for like 40 minutes, and it's like they don't really get many places. This one I'm very happy to hear is like really on point, and they're asking good questions, and they really they're like kind of no nonsense. They just get right to it.
I haven't seen Western Show.
But there's some weird moments in there.
yeah.
Sure.
I guess we should go. How did
Come on, man.
you discover the SCP Wiki? Like, what got you on the path?
It was weird, and a few other people have had this happen to them, and I've actually done this to other people myself. But what happened was somebody had one of the pages like loaded up on their phone. They're like, "Yo, check this out." He's like, "This is like a secret government, like like passing it off as like authentic and real."
Mm.
And I was much younger, much dumber at the time. I'm like, "Oh shit! Like this shit looks serious." Like
That used to be a big thing back in the day, but people don't know that. Dr. Gears in an interview with DJ Cactus on the Cactus Cast in like 2016, 2018, something like that. He was like, that was always the point. That was always the purpose of it. And if we ever lose track of the fact that this is supposed to at least have the capability of fooling people, young people, people who don't know any better, then we've lost our way. That's what Dr. Gears had to say about that. So, obviously that was, a little tongue in cheek, but I think it's important to maintain that sort of believability. I mean, it's really what the challenge is in any sort of artistic medium, like particularly film. I know you've seen those videos on YouTube of the experts who come by and grade different scenes of a variety of movies that have to deal with their area of expertise. There's something to be said for doing something believably and genuinely, and so that it's not just like ridiculous. And so that's really what I think Dr. Gears was getting at. There should always be, I think, sort of a real strong attempt to make something believable. It's the same thing behind something like theater, that makes it so surreal of an experience as a consciousness. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to that. SD Locke is talking about it here in the sense of being on the other end of it, which I unfortunately never got the enjoyment of. I never got to do that. So yeah, I think it's kind of made fun of now. People are like, oh, haha, SCP real, REEL, oh yeah. But I mean, that's funny, but like, there's something deeper there, and people like Dr. Gears are trying to tell you about it.
It's like, and it took like I didn't like click any links or anything like that, so I just saw the page and like it's all scientific-esque documentation.
I fucking love it. That's the whole reason.
Some people actually believed it was real.
Yeah.
Yes, dude. That's the whole point.
So that's how I found out about it. Was
why it's so fucking good.
It was an authentic like conspiracy.
Right.
I think.
I'm
just not remembering. SCP-5. Go ahead.
What's it called? I just wanted to say because I remember how I found SCP was my friend sent me the floppy disk that gives you a bunch of fetishes from the 1000 series.
Was that a floppy disk? I think it was a CD-ROM.
Really
oh yeah.
Was it 104? That was
I completely forgot about that one.
Guess who wrote that one? Guess who wrote that one, guys? Yeah. Guess who wrote this one? Take a guess. Yeah, you know who wrote this one. You know who wrote this one. No, it wasn't Jacob Conwell. There he is right there. There he is. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that was weird?
My friend sent me the floppy disk that gives you a bunch of fetishes from the 1000 series.
It's a CD-ROM, isn't it? Then I just see
it was
that.
really funny.
I'm not going to go back there for your sake and mine.
I forgot about that one.
That one's fucking nasty.
Yeah, who would have thought?
What were you going to say, Matt?
Come on, dude.
Well, I was going to say, I'm just now remembering SCP-597, which the description of which I can only say is the giant kitty blob monster. That, I think, was actually my first SCP. I'm assuming you didn't have quite so traumatic a first SCP.
Why?
It's interesting. I guess, they're sort of restructuring staff as we speak, but I think this is maintenance. Some of the adult splashes are like on the page as little like headers, and other ones are like legitimate splash pages. So I'm not sure which one is, which one's the real one here. I don't know if I know this one. Interesting.
SCP-597, which the description of which I can only say is the giant kitty blob monster. That
did he say
I think
titty?
was actually my first SCP.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you didn't have quite
titty.
so traumatic a first SCP.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of teats, various colors and size, all over its body, mostly located on its rolls. Whenever a mammal is released into the cell, it will be drawn to the corresponding teat for its species, and then proceed to suckle. Who wrote this? I don't know if I want to look, but I'm gonna look. Was this Harmony? Did Harmony write this? Name wrote this. So, okay. I don't know this one, but my God, that's fucked up.
SCP.
Why would you ever come back if that was the first one you saw?
Yeah.
I was so flabbergasted when I realized somebody actually sat down and spent
Maybe
time
you liked it a little too
writing
much.
that I had to see what else was in there. Not to mention I got into the SCP-173 craze when the single player game came out a long time ago.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
Very
Mother,
interested in Let's Players.
mom, mummy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I got into SCP.
Sheesh.
It's been a long time now. I feel like an old man.
Has it really been
A lot
10
of
years?
data expunged
Yeah, it
here.
must
Look
have
at
been.
this. This is how it was back in the day, 2009. I mean, just tons of data expunged. My God, it's like a chain restaurant throwing butter and garlic and parsley on everything. Just data expunged everywhere, just for flavor. for good luck. It's like not even like good parsley, like the dried parsley flakes that don't taste like anything. They taste like air. They certainly don't taste like parsley, like real parsley. Just for looks. That's what this used to be. I'm so glad that we don't do this stuff anymore. This is really bad. But hey, that was then. This is now.
April 5th.
Oh my gosh.
We're almost at 10 years.
Oh, dude, that's like oh gosh,
Dear
I feel
Christ.
old. I'm really old. Oh my goodness.
We were all small children.
You ain't got shit
We
on
all
me.
fucking aged.
Well, we were. I'm sure where you.
We
where you sit on
gained
that.
wrinkles.
That was similar.
I'm so old when I hang out with my friends, we don't talk. We don't even say anything. We just sit there. I fucking love it, by the way.
I can't remember. I probably
Love
should
that
have asked
shit.
Sergio before we started the show. But what was your first SCP?
My first, you actually read it. It was the 2193, the X-Men Syndrome one,
Interesting.
with the
Oh.
protein bars that give you broken ass superpowers.
That's
That was
That
the
was your
first-
first one?
That's
Wow.
a damn good. That's a damn good one for your first.
I'm glad I
Solid
picked
start.
that one now.
Superheroes.
I'm not sure if that was my first article. Let me say, 20th of July. Yeah, so
Yeah,
my
I
first
don't know.
article was actually a Geos article, like
Ah.
something from their perspective.
Okay.
But your first actual SCP was 2-1.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's pretty good one. How did you come up with
Great job. Past
I-
lock. Great.
I think it's really hard to figure out what they're talking about because once again, the skips in the actual audio of the podcast here are cutting out some vital information. I don't think this is the article that he meant. That Locke meant to reference. There's nothing about a protein bar in here or superheroes. I don't think. But yeah, I mean, hey, kudos. I don't know any of my own numbers. That's fine. So respect.
Something from their perspective.
But your first actual SCP was 2-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's pretty good one. How did you come up with
Great job.
Yeah.
Past lock. Great job.
No, like a really good first article is something that the community will be like, oh, they'll fucking love it. Like, if you've ever like been around people who just love it when other people have kids, if there's like a new kid, they just fucking love it. Like this is the best thing in the world. That's what it's like on the SCP Wiki when a new author comes up and their first entry is like really good. Or decently good for a first article. In fact, this week, I hope you tune in Friday. We'll go through all the SCP articles released this week in great detail, as we do every week. But this week already, there's been two articles that are from new authors that are pretty fucking good. But yeah, so it's almost like celebrating. The celebration's almost like a new 001. It's like, oh, hey, we got a really new author who's probably pretty fucking good.
I think I was just into reading like a bunch of like weird shit on like TV tropes and Cracked at the time, and I was reading a bunch about like secondary superpowers that like you need to make your superpowers work, otherwise you die in horrible ways. And I was like, I could make that into an SCP, and that's pretty much the entire thought process behind it. It's not.
Not that this matters or that I care, but I think someone said recently that Locke's proposal is now the highest rated 001. And I think, what is it? Clef, Gate, I can't spell, Gate, Guardian. Let's go to the actual wiki, please. Actual wiki. Look at all this. Oh, here it is. Got a lot of crap coming up here. 2017, and this is 2063, so congratulations.
It's not that deep.
I mean, that's better.
I was reading a bunch about like secondary superpowers that like you need to make your superpowers work, otherwise you die in horrible ways. And I was like, I could make that into an SCP, and that's pretty much the entire thought process behind it. It's not that deep.
I mean, that's better than most, I would say. There are some SCPs on here that I am amazed that somebody actually wrote.
It doesn't have to be that deep.
Yeah,
man.
like you got your weird ones. You got your weird ones that are like, you got the what is it, the water monster? I forget the number, but it's like you touch water and you get warped into this ocean where you get eaten by like a leviathan or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the first series ones.
And then you got others that are just like, yeah, it's a thing that kills you.
I think almost every article they've mentioned so far is a series 1. So, not that means a whole lot. Just a curious thing to observe. once again, I don't know anything about these podcasters. I don't know anything about this podcast. I don't know if they're like active on the wiki. I would guess that they're not, because most everything they've referenced so far is Series 1. Just not always reliable, but somewhat of a tip-off sometimes.
And fucking bear appear. That's one of the first series ones.
And then you got others that are just like, yeah, it's a thing that kills you.
I like what is it? There's one. It's like if you solve this one particular math equation, it makes a fucking bear appear.
Yep.
What?
Oh yeah, that's
it's so
1313.
good. It's so good.
Okay, so that is my fucking favorite article ever on the wiki. Period, hands down. Not even close. No question. This is it. I think it was written by Malice Afterthought, if I'm not mistaken. Grin and Barrett. That's funny. This article is the best article on the wiki, in my opinion, by far. It's not even close. This has been my favorite SCP for like, I don't know, like 4 years. It's just amazing. It's just so fucking good. It's ridiculously good. Malice Afterthought is not really a active author, I think, in this moment in time. Let me just check up on them. They have a Twitter. Maybe I should check that out. Recent contributions. Come on now, Wikidot. Don't die on me now. February 22. Okay. Oh, look, they wrote recently. Some commentary here. Anyway, so still on the site. Nice to see that. Wander's Library, been doing some stuff there in May. That's I think, was that this month? Yeah. Still dipping back in. That's good, because for a while, Malice Afterthought was not around. There was a long time of inactivity, I think. Maybe not sequentially. Maybe it was just a matter of months. But anyway, all that to say, Malice Afterthought, I think, is probably one of my favorite authors in the wiki ever. Malice is, I don't know anything about Malice, but is an author who would just had such a proficiency with abstract concepts. And not abstract concepts in the terms of like, the Department of Irreality, where it's like the whole idea of the article is supposed to be this, it's almost barely a note sounding of an idea. It's sort of this suggestion of a scent on a breeze that comes and goes very quickly. That's kind of what the Department of Irreality is. Very abstract, but just in a different way. Malice's work was just like, robustly abstract, just like tremendous, like so inventively abstract. It did not compromise. It was just like full-fledged, like 1,000 horsepower abstract engine stuff. Just ridiculous. And so this was something that was written, I think in 2018. So this is just a little before I showed up on the site too. So good call. We got our first Series 2 reference. That's nice to see as well. But this article is just, it's not going to get any better than this. It's not going to get any better than this. This is a fucking amazing article.
I like, what is it? There's one, it's like, if you solve this one particular math equation, it makes a fucking bear appear. It's so good. It's so good.
Holy shit.
Does the bear like
are
kill
you
you
talking
afterwards, or does it just make a bear?
It's a
Just
bear,
makes a bear.
so I mean, what a bear is, it'll totally eat your ass. Like, if I was a bear and I just
makes a
makes
bear.
the fuck out of you.
SCP-1313, aka
Such a
Solve for Bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to read that one out.
I mean, so like, let me put it this way: the amount of conceptual reach, the amount of conceptual acrobatics, like the extension and the muscle required to reach from a mathematical formula to bear, is such a inventive and creative way to maneuver and navigate yourself into an anomaly. Is just like, and the rest of the article is just fantastically written too. But that's what I mean. That's what Malice would do. Malice is one of the only highly abstract authors out there who can write something and it be like satisfyingly clear and ridiculously abstract at the same time. That's hard to do. Most people just come down on the side of being vague and letting the vagueness sort of stand in for substantive thought. Malice was unique and is unique in that there's an equal amount, equal parts abstractness, obscurity, obtuseness, and just brilliantly concrete thinking. Just amazing to watch.
Really wild concepts.
The candy bars one was at least a little deep because you had us for like 10 minutes trying to figure out what what exactly happened to the guy who ate mock mallow.
Yeah, the mock mallow being a redacted is one of the best uses of redaction I've seen, just because the implications are very, very scary.
Yeah, I try not to overdo options in my shit. Just
we talk a lot about how that's something that we
Yeah.
don't like.
It's just
over
annoying to read.
redaction.
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, kind of a thing
Yeah,
now.
speaking of things we don't like, what are some SCP tropes that you just cannot stand outside of like the redaction?
What a good question.
Tropes. I think probably my most hated trope. So, I mean, given that it's like a short format, you don't have a lot of room to work with like it's hard to like really like build narratives and establish characters and have them grow throughout a narrative. Like it's a challenge to work it into this weird format you have. So I understand.
Locke has
like,
such
it's
a
kinda hard
calm
to do,
voice.
but I don't like when like
Unexpected.
as a shortcut to make people feel for a character. Like it's just like they sort of have a like a sad sack character that just always has bad things and bad things and bad things happening to them. So like you kind of feel bad for them as a shortcut to like actually establishing like a more well-rounded character, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot.
Yeah, interesting trope. I guess that's a trope, yeah. Mine specifically, not that I was asked. Mine are the talking sapient animal whose dialogue lives off of wacky, zany cultural misinterpretations and unintentional slights and offenses as a result of lack of cultural understanding between the sapient speaking animal and what is inevitably a Foundation researcher who is trying their hardest. I hate that trope. That happens all the time. And then I don't really hate it, but anytime I see like a device that has no obvious power source, I mean, come on.
A more well-rounded character, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Like you can't really delve too deep into a character, so instead of like giving them some proper personality, you're just like, this person just has a ton of misfortune happen to them and there's nothing they can do about it.
3001 Red Reality does a pretty good job of characterizing Dr. Scranton before his unfortunate demise.
Yeah, that's a really good example.
Classic.
So, I mean, you discussed how you don't like that trope. Is there any particular way that you would go about maybe taking that trope and trying to make it better or potentially fix it?
Yeah, there's actually one that's really relevant because
Yeah, don't do it.
Not just like a lazy asshole.
Trope and trying to make it better or potentially fix it?
Yeah, there's actually one that's really relevant because I also did like critique on this site when I was actually more useful and not just like a lazy asshole.
Locke's critique is excellent. Anytime you get to see Locke critique, it's usually fucking fantastic. And if Locke ever happens to critique your work, you should be thankful. Really good stuff.
So one thing I did want to go over, and because I did like little tiny like miniature like columns sort of like in the comment sections of certain articles, just talking about like the writing process. And one that does do very good characterization for somebody who has bad shit happening to him would be SCP-3009. It's titled "Hi, I'm your Snappleganger," and like it's weird. It's got it's like some girl who's like
This was an interesting thing that happened. So Locke previously occupied the 3009 slot. Don't know if you know this, and gave it up to this author. This is the actual author. This is a selfie of the actual author, and this author's name is, I think, Kiru. Ke. That's it. Ke. Ke came on the scene about this time in 2018 and just took it by storm. There was an original character contest going on at that time. Let's see if we can find that. Original character contest. This is just around 4,000 contest too. Wonder if, yeah, that's it. It's a tournament. Yeah. I don't think this ever finished. Peppers was the one who started this, and it was really interesting to see. Mostly Tails, but here she is right here. She entered in that and did a really, really good job. Was a very talented author who just flashed onto the scene and impressed a lot of people, and then kind of disappeared. Not sure what's going on now. I do want to kind of look and see what's been up. So this person had a draft, and I think Locke read it and thought it was so good that, yeah, it's been 2019. So this was Christmas of 2019. Not back since then, as far as I can tell. But anyways, so Locke, I think, enjoyed this article so much that Locke deleted the entry for 3009 and gave it to this author to post here. So I've never read this, so I can't say anything about it. I kind of want to not like it just because this is very clearly, to me, a way to kind of cheat the system. If you're a cute girl and you post a selfie as yourself on the article, it's probably going to get a lot of love, for whatever reason. Having said that, I understand that this writer is actually really, really fucking good. And that it's hard to impress people as much as this author did. So it can't all be attributable to the looks. This is just the story behind this article, and the story of an author that you may not have known about, who came and went flash in the pan style, but was very, very talented and had a bright future, but for some reason just felt like this wasn't the right place to be. And maybe given the good looks of this individual, maybe that's probably the right move. I don't know. Just from what we know about what people will do. I can't imagine the DMs that this gal got. So anyways, that is about 20 minutes in. And so we've been doing this about an hour tonight. So we'll kind of call it a night. And I do want to reiterate, this is the last Monday night that we'll be doing this. I'll update the schedule without telling too long of a story. I got to go back full time to my career next week, so I'll have less time on my hands. Still going to be doing this, just we'll push it to Tuesday and Thursday only. So this week we'll do tonight, Tuesday, and Thursday, but starting next week we won't do this on Mondays. We'll still do every other show, the Friday show, the big one, the Gauntlet, where we look at all the SCP articles on the week, and of course the Saturday show, SCP Meta, that's 11 a.m. It's a call-in with your questions, with your comments, with your criticisms, and with your crank calls even. That would be nice. Trollage is welcome and accepted. All right, well, I do appreciate you joining us tonight. Had a great time. I really, really love doing this. Wish I could do it full time. Never gonna happen, but I can dream, and I can thank you for being here and participating. And share the link. Share the link if you think people would like this. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts. I'm up here, saying what I think about it, but I would like equally to hear what you have to say about it. So don't be shy if you're in the Twitch. Throw a comment up. Would love to hear it, what you have to say about that. And then invite some more people, I guess. Don't really care about numbers. I'd be doing this if no one was watching. I think everybody knows that by now. But, the more people who are watching this, the more fun it'll be, just with commentary to play off of. Improv style. So anyways, thanks for joining. I'll see you tomorrow night, same time, 7:30 p.m. CST. We'll continue right where we picked up on this nice interview with S D Locke from So You Think You Can Fanon. Take it easy.